Hello, I'm American Joe Miedusiewki, bringing you, along with Brett Leininger, Old Line Government Affairs podcast. Thank you for tuning in.
Thank you. So with 2 weeks left in the legislative session, there are a number of issues that we'd like to talk to you about that are hot issues. One is sports betting. As neighboring states are jumping onto the sports betting bandwagon on the heels of a Supreme Court decision that struck down the federal ban on sports betting, Maryland is looking to get into the fray. Legislation has been introduced to put the issue on referendum in the presidential ballot in 2020, and there's other legislation that would seek to circumvent the referendum process and just have the authorize the Maryland State Lottery Commission to enact the regulatory framework for sports betting. The Attorney General, Brian Frosh, at this point has said that it needs to go to referendum before there's any action taken. With 2 weeks remaining in this legislative session, it appears that the legislature is not looking to take any action on the referendum front, and rather in favor of doing it in 2020 legislative session, which would still give it time to be put on the ballot for the 2020 election.
Thank you, Brett. If you're watching us on one of your devices, you may be interested in the 5G small cell legislation that's being considered in the Maryland General Assembly. 5G is the next phase of being able to handle the capacity that we are all putting on the digital system. Right now, if you go to a large event, there may be a little bit of a delay if there are 20, 30,000 people at an arena or a stadium and you're all trying to get to the same information. And 5G is the next system that will enable you to get things in a timely and a convenient way. There was legislation in last year, and it came in late, so we didn't have a lot of time to deal with it. We did have testimony in the House and the Senate this year, but because of some internal situations with sponsorship of bills and the complexity of this subject, it's been referred to summer study. We're going to look at what the FCC has said about installation of the antennas and the devices that will be needed, and then we're also going to look at how the states, about 22 states have already implemented 5G around the country, and Maryland will be looking at how they're going to do it here. Most interestingly is how local governments will look at where antennas will be placed, where small cell units will be placed, and how they'll use towers. So a lot of right-of-way systems are going to be in question right now, but the FCC does provide some guidance on that for what they call shot clocks. If you're going to put it on a tower that's existing, you have 60 days to make a decision. If you're going to put it in a new space, you have 90 days to make a decision. So all of that is going to be considered over the summer in the two committees, in the Senate and the House. We'll have more for you on that as it progresses. But just know that if you're watching us on a device right now, you're in the system that needs to be expanded.
Excellent. Thanks, Joe. One final topic is front and center right now is renewable energy. Current Maryland law requires purchasers of electricity or energy to buy 25% of their overall spend on renewable energy sources. This is known as the Renewable Portfolio Standard, or the RPS. There's legislation this session to increase the RPS requirement to 50%. Energy advocates, the entities that are producing the energy, are seeking to either get themselves back into the RPS, expanding their footprint, or keeping themselves into the RPS. Senate Bill 516, the Clean Energy Jobs Act, just passed out of the Senate last week, while its cross-filed legislation, House Bill 1158, remains in the House Economic Matters Committee after it failed to receive enough votes for an unfavorable report earlier in the session. There's plenty of time for action on this legislation, and environmental and renewable energy advocates are putting pressure on the House to take action this year. Thus far, House leadership has stated that they want to see a study that has been charged by the General Assembly to be completed, which would be at the end of this calendar year in 2019. With $1 million invested in the study and it being a very complex issue, House leadership has stated that they want to make sure that they get all the facts in before making such a broad policy decision. So we'll see what happens in the coming 2 weeks of session, and we appreciate your time and thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Brett. So check in with us shortly. The 2 weeks left in the General Assembly will bring you up to speed on a number of the bills and how they fared. Thank you.